First up, the United Nations used a new land route on Tuesday to deliver food to Northern Gaza for the first time in 3 weeks. Global pressure continues to grow on Israel to allow more access to the coastal enclave amid a looming famine. A World Food Programme convoy used an Israeli military road that runs alongside the Gaza border fence to reach the enclave's north. The World Food Programme spokesperson has said enough food for 25,000 people was delivered to Gaza City in the early hours of Tuesday. The Israeli army released footage of what it said were humanitarian aid trucks heading to the northern Gaza Strip. The UN has warned that at least 576,000 people in Gaza are on the brink of starvation. The White House National Security Advisor has said US was working with Israel to increase the amount of aid by ground, both through the Kerem Shalom and through a new crossing. Limited aid via land has been reaching southern Gaza through the Rafah crossing from Egypt and Kerem Shalom from Israel. Now, the UN had been pushing Israel for weeks to allow aid convoys once inspected in the south to use a military road along the Gaza border, Fence Road. The plan was for trucks to cross into Gaza from the Israeli village of Biri. The United States, Jordan and others have conducted airdrops of aid in Gaza as well. On Tuesday, a ship carrying 200 tons of aid left Cyprus in a pilot project to open a sea corridor to deliver supplies. While UN officials have welcomed new aid routes, they stress there is no substitute for land access.
And I can tell you that they jointly welcomed the opening of a maritime corridor to deliver much needed additional humanitarian assistance by sea to Gaza. They commended the leadership of Cyprus and the support extended by the European Commission, Qatar, the UAE, the United Kingdom, the United States, and others. They added that for aid delivery at scale, there is no meaningful substitute to the many land routes and entry points from Israel into Gaza.
The US may urge partners and allies to fund a privately run operation to send aid by sea to Gaza that could begin before a much larger US military effort. If funding is secured, the plan could bring ashore large amounts of aid in a matter of weeks. And as per news agency Reuters, it could be faster than US military's floating pier system that the Pentagon says could take up to 60 days to become operational. While the US government is prioritizing the military's plan, the commercial project could complement the effort by providing support on the shores in Gaza. President Joe Biden's administration has ruled out allowing US troops to set foot in the enclave, even as they build a pier system. Now, as per Gaza officials, over 31,000 Palestinians have already been killed in Israel's military offensive. Hundreds of Jordanians demonstrated close to the Israeli embassy in the capital, chanting pro-Palestinian slogans. They demanded immediate relief for Palestinians in Gaza on the first day of the Muslim month of fasting of Ramadan. Jordan, which lies at the heart of the Arab-Israeli conflict, hosts 2.4 million Palestinian refugees, the largest number of such refugees among Israeli neighbors. Many of its citizens are of Palestinian origin. In fact, we asked our correspondent Jody Cohen in Israel on the uptick in the violence in West Bank in recent days and whether it was a new front opening up in the war.
So the Palestinians have said that 2 people have been killed in an IDF raid in Jenin. The IDF hasn't commented on this specifically, but we know that over the past 2 years, we've seen an IDF attempt to crack down on West Bank terror groups. That's because Israel says that Hamas and Islamic Jihad have been gaining strength in the northern West Bank and that the Palestinian Authority has failed to stop weapons smuggling. And Defense Minister Gallant said that Iran is smuggling weapons into the West Bank and that Israelis should brace for terror over Ramadan. In the latest, 2 Israelis have been wounded in a stabbing near Jerusalem on Wednesday morning. 2 days ago, intelligence indicated that a West Bank Palestinian was on his way to Tel Aviv to carry out a terror attack, which was thwarted. Now, we don't really hear about too many attempted terror attacks on global news, and that's simply because there are just too many of them to report them all. We know that Hamas has called on the Palestinians to march on the Al-Aqsa Temple Mount compound in Jerusalem. We've seen riots there in previous years during Ramadan, and the West Bank and Jerusalem could see an uptick in violence in the coming weeks. Now, to try to prevent this, Israel has said that there'll be the same number of worshippers will be allowed to pray in Jerusalem during Ramadan as in previous years.
Well, we also asked Jody about what's being done to increase aid to Palestinians in Gaza and an Israeli onslaught in Gaza as well.
So the UN has used the new military roads that Israel built to deliver aid from Israel into Gaza. Now, it's interesting that this aid was delivered by the World Food Programme and not by the UN's Palestinian agency, UNRWA. Israel's seeking to coordinate with other UN agencies after allegations that a quarter of UNRWA male employees are Hamas or Islamic Jihad operatives. Now, Israel has said that there's no limits to the amount of aid that it can inspect, but the problem has been UNRWA's failure to distribute the aid and that Hamas has been stealing 60% of it. Israel's seeking to work with private Palestinian organizations and clans to secure the aid convoys, but a Hamas-linked website has warned that Hamas would deal with what it's called collaborators with an iron fist. Meanwhile, US National Security Advisor Sullivan has dismissed reports that President Biden is considering withholding US military aid for Israel if Israel targets Hamas in Rafah, calling it uninformed speculation. And that's after Prime Minister Netanyahu said that countries can't say that they support Israel's goal of destroying Hamas and then oppose Israel when it takes actions that are necessary. He said that Israel must operate in Rafah, otherwise Hamas will regroup, and called that an intolerable threat to Israel's future.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.